Hello, I'm IBX Toycat, and welcome back, or really welcome for the first time, to the Toycat Show. This is a little bit of a one-man podcast thing I figured I would try out here on the second channel, where I want to talk about gaming news that interests me, because the thing about me is I really like playing games and listening to podcasts. It's quite a fun little, crossover activity thing, and I really like, a really specific crossover of, gaming news, technology news, business news, and, YouTube news all in one, and it's something that I don't really find out there anywhere, and I figured, the thing about the internet is if there's something out there that you think should exist and it doesn't, you can make it yourself. So the dream here is that I forget about recording this as soon as I'm done. I can listen back to it and be like, oh, this Toycat guy sure makes some astute points, but he's an idiot with that point there. That's the dream, but it's probably not going to happen. But anyway, yeah, hopefully you enjoy this little bit of a pilot. It's just going to be me winging it and talking at this microphone over here for, however long it takes. But yeah, today I'm going to be talking about 3 particular stories. 2 are to do with Nintendo. I'm going to be talking about the NX, or the next Nintendo console. We've heard some news to do with that. I'm going to be talking about a Wii U emulator coming out, and kind of emulators and that sort of stuff, and kind of because those 2 Nintendo stories come up together, the wider state of gaming, because gaming consoles are going in a really weird place, and I wanted to talk about that. And then thirdly, I wanted to talk about death on YouTube, because if you don't know, Totalbiscuit, a fairly big YouTuber, has been diagnosed with a terminal cancer, and that's we've had YouTubers die before, but I don't think we've had big YouTubers slowly fade away like that. And I wanted to kind of discuss, death and YouTube. And I guess maybe it's a dark topic for the first episode, but again, we get to try out 3 different things. 2, one, me being like something's cool, 1, me being like something's weird, and 1, death-based one. So yeah, let's start, shall we? With the first one here, which is to do with the NX. So this is really old news, that's new news, because if you don't know, I go for a lot of news because, I used to be a technology journalist, and a lot of that still sticks in my my feed and how I come into news. But basically, a while ago, the NX, the next Nintendo console, I really hate code names because the Xbox One was called the Durango, and it was clearly not going to be called that, but everyone calls it that anyway. I think code names are just ridiculous because the next Nintendo console or the next Xbox console is way more descriptive than Durango or NX. But anyway, that's off the point. So we had news about this next Nintendo console, or the NX, if you will, and basically what we heard about it is that the room we'd heard before, I think we'd heard about 2 years ago, that basically it was going to be a portable and main console crossover. That news had been kind of confirmed because development kits were sent out, supposedly, and those development kits, actually showed the kind of console thing, and this means that, the controller, kind of a crossover between the Wii U and the 3DS is going to be coming, and that's a really interesting idea to me, because the Wii U should have been that in the first place. If you look at the Wii U, it's a dual screen console. It's got a screen on the controller and a screen on the TV, and you can do lots of cool stuff with that. If you think about it, because so many games allow you to take the controller and play it near the Wii U, it would make more sense to take that console hardware and put it in the Wii U. And it would not surprise me if eventually they actually make a Wii U model which entirely has that, built in, because although it would make the controller heavier, it's already quite heavy, and it would make it a really cool console that you can take on the go. Imagine being able to take, your N64 back in the day on the go. Imagine being able to take your PlayStation 2 on the go. That's kind of what the NX could offer if it does this well. So, basically, this is the news that came out from it. They've also said that 2016 is the earlier release date they're looking at, and that's kind of crazy if you think about it, because Nintendo, when it comes to Nintendo, they used to be, the big force in gaming. So it used to be Nintendo, Sega, then it was Nintendo, Sony, and now it's Nintendo, Sony, Xbox type deal. And, Nintendo have kind of gone away from that race with the Wii, where it's, they made the most successful console of that generation, but it doesn't really compete with the other consoles. And then you've got the Wii U, where again, it doesn't really compete with the other consoles. The consoles are kind of gaming PCs type deal, where it's you buy this game and then for the next 6 years you can buy games and they'll run fine, whereas the Wii U's more buy this console and then you can buy our games for it, which it's a very, very weird model, and I guess it works out well for them to some extent. But yeah, the fact that they're going to be releasing another console in 2016 or 17, if this does prove to be true, 1, if they can just make it more powerful than the other 2 consoles, I think Nintendo wins. If there's a Nintendo console that runs, all games better and has its own unique games, there's no reason to pick up a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One. And 2, if they can make that a portable experience too, I think there is just maybe a chance that, Nintendo could revive, gaming and mobile gaming. Because the thing is, console gaming is taking a big hit. I think this is something that's kind of irrefutable. 10 years ago, if you wanted to play games, you play on your console. Now, there's PC gaming eating into it on the more hardcore end, and on the more casual end, there's smartphone gaming. I can pick up my smartphone right now, and while we're talking, I'm downloading a game from the App Store. Let's see what's on there today. And, boom, Minecraft Story Mode. I quite would play that. And I can be, like that, I'm playing. Whereas, with a console, which quickly proved the same example, I'm turning it on, and then I'll wait 20 seconds, and then, I can, if I haven't installed the game yet, I better be willing to wait another 2 hours, and then I can pay for that game that cost me £40 or $60, versus, on your phone, free games, or, I think, the top end of pricing is like £5, and that's an expensive game on, so, when it comes to casual, it's just easier to do on a phone. When it comes to hardcore, it's slightly cheaper and slightly better looking on the PC. It's being eaten into from both sides, and I think the Nintendo's, they're not going to do it right, because Nintendo always have good ideas, then ruin it. But I think if they could make a more powerful console that is also portable, that'd be something amazing. And whether this, actually happens or not is beyond me, but that would be the most incredible thing to me. The Wii DS, if you will. That's a terrible name. Oh, it's so bad, they're going to do it. I mean, Nintendo's company, I'm not going to discuss them too much, but they try so hard, and I think it's the American Nintendo, really, really good, smart company, really good, really, they know what they're doing, they actually have good ideas, whereas the Japanese ones, there's just so many bad ideas that came out of them, like the YouTube monetization thing. Of course, I'm a YouTuber, so I think that, Nintendo being like, hey, you're playing our game, so 30% of the revenue? Like, if it would make sense if Nintendo made cutscene-based games. If they made games that were purely based on the cinematics, yeah, take your money. But they make games that are purely based on gameplay, where it's different every single time, and it's very, very weird like that. I once had a big argument with a friend who was like, no, you cannot own gameplay. And I was like, well, you shouldn't be able to, but you can kind of. And I was like, no, that just doesn't make sense. And I think that kind of proves just how ridiculous the whole legal situation is. And also, I hope when he, because the friend follows gaming news, I hope when he found out about that, he was like, Toycat's right. Maybe I should trust him when it comes to this sort of thing. Because, he is a YouTuber, he does deal with this for a living. But that's too much on that subject. Let's move on to the next one. So, let's start talking about the Wii U emulator. That was just released. So, you've probably heard the headline, or you probably saw something about it. Or even if you haven't, the headline is Wii U Emulator Working Release. And this is technically correct, but it's the worst type of technically correct, because although it will run Wii U games, it only runs them kind of badly. And first of all, let's explain emulation first, so you maybe understand why. Basically, hardware has changed a lot over the last 20 years. Even though Moore's Law's taken effect, and a 20-year-old PC is 1,000 times less powerful, or wait, more than 1,000 times. A PC from 20 years ago is more than 1,000 times less powerful than the PC from today. But yet there are some tasks that PC did that can't necessarily be just automatically done on your 20-year later PC. You have to write something new for it. This is because of architecture and the way you make all the things happen. But basically, the key thing behind it is if you want to have your PC run older software, you have to emulate it, which means having software to act like that hardware. And emulation is a very inefficient process. If you want to have N64 emulators were like the first big console to be actually emulated. And to run an N64 in your PC, you need to have the power of 50 N64s, let's say. This is because, you have to waste a lot of resources on that process of kind of converting it live as it goes. And it also means making a working emulator with sound, with all these things on every single game working fine, is a very, very tricky thing to do. So now taking that into account, the Wii U emulator so far plays 2 games, and I believe it also, the 2 games they have got running, they're playing on a, really high-end PC, something like 10 times the powerful Wii U, and it still can run the Wind Waker HD at something like 2 to 3 FPS. It basically, and also there's no sound, so you can't actually play games on it. But they have, got something. They've really, made the first inch of the mile needed for emulation, and that's kind of the story here. But I wanted to talk about emulation as a wider subject, because there's still not working Xbox 360, PS3, PS4, Xbox One emulators, but yet Nintendo, N64, Wii, GameCube, all of that stuff has now been, cracked and emulated. And I think at some point, this is going to start negatively affecting them, because you can't stop the emulation. They can send their cease and desist letters all they like, but, they base themselves out of Finland, or I forget where the intellectual property laws are really thin. It's probably the Caribbean somewhere. But wait, there's one of those islands where everyone, Gibraltar maybe? There's an island where everyone bases themselves to avoid intellectual property laws, and they put their casinos there and stuff. But anyway, basically, all they have to do is base themselves there, and maybe now your copyright laws don't apply. That's kind of fun. But the thing about this, though, I wanted to kind of address is the fact that Nintendo is going to, at some point, lose their status because they make good software. That's something that you can't disagree with. They make amazing Zelda games. They make amazing, they haven't made an F-Zero game in a while, but their F-Zero franchise is amazing. Metroid, everyone wants to see that. All these franchises are games people want to see, and they're willing to pay for a console and that, Mario Kart, etc. But at some point, because people are trying to emulate their stuff so hard, I feel as though they need to move to software only, and they have made that move in part. I believe. They have a contract to make some mobile games, that's interesting enough by itself. But I think, being Nintendo and being focused on software only and forcing people to buy your hardware, just play your software, is a really bad idea. If you think about today's world, we're trying to move towards less devices. If you think 10 years ago, you have your PC and your laptop and your... I don't know, you might have a fax machine or something ridiculous, but then you have, 2 gaming consoles, or even if it's 1 gaming console, you might have a portable gaming console. You have all those different things. Nowadays, I think I'm an exception because I work with so many consoles, but you need a PC and you need a smartphone, and do you need anything else? I mean, you don't need it. I mean, some people, you might get a gaming console in there, but you're not going to get all the gaming consoles and this and that and your portable game. It's just kind of dying out, and I think trying to sell people that hardware just to play the software, at some point it's going to run thin. You're basically charging people £200 for a game, and people are willing to pay it, but why not just work out a better way to sell it? I feel as though they could make so much more money going cross-platform. Imagine the next Legend of Zelda game comes out for the Xbox One and the PS4, I guess is a better example, and the PC even, and then you're like, oh, I'll buy it, actually. I couldn't afford a Nintendo console, but now I'll pick it up. And I imagine, the ratio, we can actually work this out right now. If it just in terms of gross revenue, a console costs roughly 3 times the cost of a game when it comes to Wii U. I think maybe 4 times, let's be fair. If they can sell 4 times more copies, then they make more money than even if 100% their console sales are profit. And that's not how that works at all. The console sale is like 10% profit. They'll make, even a really good console is like 50%, and that's at the end of its life cycle, whereas a game is nearly pure profit. So even if it's double the sales, they can make just being on Nintendo, then switching makes so much sense. Also, they don't have to worry about this console war stuff. They don't have to worry about, launching a bad piece of hardware, sinking their whole business. They don't have to worry about doing all this and that. And that's why I think Nintendo should move to a software-based model, because I think really most people, I think at some point Microsoft and Sony, one of them's going to have to die. It looks like, it's probably going to be Microsoft because so many people want to shut down the Xbox division. I think if Nintendo also makes the smart move away, or maybe it's not so smart. Maybe this is their last try and then they move away, for the NX. But I really do think that selling software is so much more profitable than selling hardware, and especially if your hardware business is propped up by your software business, it just kind of makes sense to me. Sega's doing... Actually, Sega aren't doing too well. Maybe they're not the best example, but I think... you have to either double down on your console game and make a console worth playing games on, or you double down your software game and you just sell a bunch more copies. Let's check right now. What are the sales figures on Mario Kart 8 sales? And let's see what's going on here. Because I bet it, when you're on a Wii U, even if every single Wii U had sold Mario Kart 8, it still wouldn't be a massively successful game. I think it would, it'd be in the double digits, but it'd still be like half a Call of Duty or something like that. Whereas if you think about it sold 5.11 million copies worldwide. And it's been out for more than a year now. So that's really, really good and all. That's an amazing game. That game probably, financially, it probably saved them quite well. But if you compare that to that game being on all platforms, because it's on the Wii U and they didn't release a 3DS one, if I'm right. So yeah, it's just Wii U only. Whereas if they'd been on all the different platforms, maybe they'd have sold a few less Wii U's, and maybe they'd sold few less copies of it. Let's say they sold 3 million instead of 5 million. They could have sold that on each platform. You bet people on the PC want to play Mario Kart 8. You bet people on the Xbox One want to play it. You bet people on the... You get what I'm saying here. That, and they could have sold 12 million copies. It would just make up a number, and maybe it'd be more, because once you get that many copies, everyone's playing it, everyone needs to buy it. Whereas there are so many people who want to play games like this, but just can't have access to them. It's really weird. Also, something they could totally do is if they want to keep their own consoles, I've always thought this is something, maybe they wouldn't get away with this, maybe they would, but they should just release one of their, so let's say, Mario Kart 8's quite old now. Now that it's been a year old, before Mario Kart 10, let's say like a couple of years before, release Mario Kart 8 on all the other platforms and just give them a taste, try and hook them in. Do something, with everyone else. Just, I think it's so weird to tell people they can't buy your game until they buy your consoles first. But maybe it works out for Nintendo. So that's a long discussion on that. To kind of finish up here, I want to talk about the state of gaming as a whole. I think it's going in a really, really strange place. I think console gaming is going to not die, but it's going to be reborn as something else. And I think we're going to lose one of the three. And at this rate, it looks like it's either going to be Microsoft or it's going to be Nintendo. And I wonder, who's going to hold firmer. Because at this point, I don't think Microsoft's really ever turned a profit on the Xbox division. I think it's mostly just we own this big thing people like and we want to be liked type deal. Nintendo, I think they've been losing a lot of money, but they just have enough money to lose it. So yeah, it's kind of a contest of who's willing to stay in it longer just because they want to stay in it, which is a weird contest to be in, and it's good for the consumer, but weird to stay at. So yeah, I think console gaming is going to be in a really weird place in 5 years. I think the idea for console could just die. I think not this generation, but next generation could be the last generation of consoles, and that'd be a crazy thing. Imagine people look back and they're like, wait, people had dedicated hardware just to game? Isn't that a waste of money? Or something like that. But yeah, that's the end of my thoughts on the state of gaming right now. Let's move on to the last story here, which is the very grim story, because it's to do with the death of a YouTuber. So if you're wondering, Totalbiscuit is basically one of the larger YouTube channels when it comes to PC gaming. I believe he's got 2 million, so I think that puts him somewhere in the top million in the world, top 100 in the world. So one of the big I can check this live. See that keyboards can do magic things. He's ranked. Oh wow! Apparently having 2 million subscribers only puts you in the top 600 on YouTube these days. But he's one of the top 600 YouTubers in the world, top 1,000, let's just say. Very, very big guy, very influential amongst PC gamers and blah, 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 blah. And he recently had cancer, recently fought the cancer, and then recently got it, and it came back, and it's terminal this time. And it's such a bizarre thing to see publicly, because YouTube is a recent profession. It's been around for 10 years, but gaming YouTube and YouTube being intimate is, let's say, last 7-8 years. It's not been around for that long. And, we're now starting to see the consequence of this new sort of media. Like, when you have a TV show you like, you don't see the characters die. I mean, sometimes they'll make up an excuse for it, and sometimes it pays homage to the way the actor dies. But, the actor's there one week, then they're not the next. Whereas, when it comes to YouTube, that's not how it works at all. He's probably going to keep on making videos, and you'll slowly see, presumably there will be one day is there, one day is not, but you'll see the slow decline, and it's really, really strange. Because this is on YouTube. Before there have been deaths, but there's never been any major death channels. I know there are some. I know there's dozens of people at this point that have died in YouTube, and their channels are just, it's so creepy going to a dead YouTube channel. Like, one of the big examples in the Call of Duty community, a guy named Slayer. The way he died is actually one of those ways that's like, I feel as though you can't criticize someone who's dead, but I think he was drunk driving with kids in the Mac or something horrendous like that. But basically, he died, and his channel, for a while, it just sat there, and then someone took it over, and neither of those two things feel right. The channel, being dead feels really weird, and someone taking over the channel and using it to promote themselves, that feels really disrespectful. Imagine, you have, you have this big novel you've been writing. Let's say, George R. R. Martin, he and his Game of Thrones novels. He said that when he dies, he doesn't want anyone to take over. So I think that's got to be like an assassination plot foiler. Like, I'd totally assassinate George R. R. Martin, but I really want to know what's happening with Khaleesi. So if it's that sort of thing, then whatever. But imagine, you wrote this massive book, and you're on the 6.5 book out of 7, and you're like, this is going to be great. You have a heart attack. Someone comes in and they wipe out your last 6.5 pages, and they release Game of Thrones, the sequel, and it's this garbagely written, self-promotion thing to promote their new books they're selling. That would be awful, and that's kind of what happens with some YouTube channels. But anyway, let's move back onto the original subject here. It's going to be, I think, the consequence of YouTube being this close interaction, because, again, no other form of media are you almost friends with the people, and seeing 2 million people are going to see a friend slowly die, and to me that's so creepy. And I think it's going to be I think it's going to be interesting to see how it's handled. I mean, surely he as a person needs to know that lots of people see him as an influential figure, and they're going to have to. I don't know how you. I just don't know how you deal with it. It's gonna be a really, really strange one to keep an eye on. I think YouTube is the way YouTube is right now is a really special place as far as media goes. I think in 10 years, YouTube won't be this close. I think it'll become like other media and it'll lose that kind of charm. But I do think it's going to be really interesting to follow it while it's in its current state. And I was going to say like rip Totalbiscuit. That's actually really mean on retrospect. But yeah, good luck to Totalbiscuit, man. That like. The thought of dealing with that, like that, I think that's the closest it's ever really hit for me. That like, because even though I think I'm a casual watcher of his, it's still seeing something like that's kind of crazy. Actually, I've got a little bit of a personal story that I only just remembered. So a YouTuber I watched with maybe like 30,000 subscribers. He made videos on a bunch of weird things. I've a bunch of really interesting videos. I didn't necessarily like the guy, but I found his videos quite entertaining. And then one day he's like, okay, I'm going to do this, and if I don't, it's going to be suicide. And I don't know what exactly happened, but he's like, he uploaded the video, and it's like, this is the last video. I just wanted to say goodbye, and then he deleted all the videos the next day, and then the channel's been gone. And, you can't even name the channel. It's just vanished. And that is weird. I mean, it is like seeing a close friend die. Even if you have this attachment to the people you watch on YouTube, it's still even if you don't consider yourself friends with them, it's still kind of like, yeah, it's crazy. And that's a bad note to end this on. So let's end by yelling at Nintendo for a bit more. Bad Nintendo, release games for phones and for the Xbox, please. I want to play Mario Kart on the Xbox is what I'm saying. But anyway, thank you all for watching this little podcast thing, the Toy Cat Show, or I think I might just call it gaming news. I'll be honest, purely for views. So the thing about putting any content on YouTube is you can't just throw it out there. If you do, probably no one's going to find it. You have to, and I think the gaming news thing with like big flashy titles, it'll be a cool way for people interested in that sort of thing. If you're intrigued by a title that says, let me come up with the title right now, actually, something like Nintendo next console revealed, then you might just enjoy the podcast. And yeah, it's that's what I'm probably going to do. And if you're offended, I'm sorry, but that's why I'm doing it. So gaming news / the Toy Cat Show / Minecraft TU30 confirmed, something like that. Anyway, yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it, and like it, leave a comment, or goodbye. Oh yeah, second channel, don't care.